Jai Radha Madhava Kunjavi Hari Gopi Janavadava Girivara Gopi Janavadava Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki Ananta Bhakti Vaishnava ki Shri Shri Gaur Nitai ki Shri Shri Radha Madan Mohan ki Shri Janmashtami Tithi ki Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatyadesh-Tatane Vanchakapathurvyascha Kripasinduryevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagapate Gopesha Gopika Anta Radha Anta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhara, Shri Vasari Gaura Bhaktavinda, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Welcome to our third installment of our discussion on a subject that, O Lord, you are not a statue. Rather, you are directly the son of Nanda Maharaj. O my Lord, you are not a statue. Attending Krishna's image. Closer?
Yes, I don't know.
Oh. And today is Janmashtami, Krishna Janmatiti, the day of Krishna's so-called birth. And we heard yesterday evening from His Holiness Kadamba Kanana Maharaj that each Janmashtami day is a day for making a permanent change. That sounds a little scary, doesn't it? Don't know if I want to make a permanent change. I kind of like the way things are. But we're all here because somewhere deep inside we want to make a permanent change, and the permanent change is that we become what we're meant to be, eternal servants, eternal associates of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is known as Madan Mohan, and as also Maharaj pointed out yesterday evening, Madan Mohan can save us. So let us today direct our attention to Shri Radha Madan Mohan, because they can save us. I want to take this opportunity to convey my personal appreciation for the unsung heroes and heroines of the altar and the kitchen. It's quite a challenge from day to day, day in, day out, week in, week out, month in, month out, especially here in Goloka Dhama, for the devotees, the small number of devotees, to keep up the very high standard of worship of Radha Madan Mohan that has been established many decades ago, and yet they are doing that, and this is very wonderful. The pujaris, the cooks, those who are backing up the pujaris and the cooks, the devotees with managerial duties, and of course all the devotees who help maintain the temple by financial assistance. We all come sort of floating in for a wonderful festival, and everything is all very nice, and everything is decorated, and everyone is smiling, and prasadam is there. And yesterday I was fortunate to get a tour of Rajendra Kumar Prabhu's mobile kitchen, without which none of us would be eating. It's an amazing arrangement that he has. So all these arrangements that are going on behind the scenes, so to say, are all being done by you, by devotees, and this is a wonderful thing, and it's to be commended, appreciated, and honored. Yeah, so just my personal appreciation to the devotees here at Goloka Dham and those surrounding Goloka Dham in sort of concentric circles of involvement. Somehow or other, everyone is providing what service you are able. So what I want to talk about is the subject of what we call deity worship or Murti Seva. We have discussed already the last 2 days for some of you who have just arrived. I won't really spend time reviewing, but you could say that the essential point that we're making is the point that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu makes, or rather the young Brahmana, when he speaks to Shakshi Gopal and convinces him that if he can, as Srila Prabhupada put it, if you can talk, then you can also walk. And so he convinces him to become the witness for the older Brahmana's promise. My sort of general topic for today, but sort of going back also to yesterday, when I made notes for this, I thought to call today's subject Krishna worship as a daily dramatic celebration. In the 3rd canto of Bhagavatam, at the end of Lord Varaha's pastime of killing Hiranyaksha, it is said that he returns to Vaikuntha, where a perpetual festival is going on. In one sense, what we are doing as we practice Krishna consciousness is to practice participating in that perpetual festival. And when we have an actual festival, as we also heard, Naimittika Dharma, Naimittika Nitya Kriya, and Naimittika Kriya. So we're having Naimittika, an occasional event. We're practicing in a more intense way, and also we're coming closer, so to say, to that ongoing festival that's happening, that's already going on. There's an expression among the, how do you pronounce, Celts or Celts? The Celtic peoples? Celtics? Okay. The Celtic people say that on this planet there are various, what they call thin places. A thin place, you know about thin places of the Celtic. These are places where you go, which have a thinner than usual veil between this world and the other world. So you can kind of see through the veil to the other world. So there are also, we could say, special times. There are special places, holy places. They're called tirtha in India, places of crossing over but there are also special times. And these special times are also thin times. But they're not thin in the negative sense. They're thick. They're rich with experience of participation in the festival of the Lord. And I use the word dramatic because the idea of performance comes into the picture here. You may have noticed that sometimes Srila Prabhupada, or not just sometimes, I would say many times, Srila Prabhupada would speak of performing devotional service. And performance is sometimes thought of as what you do on a stage. Service. What is that about? Why would Srila Prabhupada use that expression? Well, I would suggest that one way to understand it, I think there are several ways, but one way to understand it is that there is a drama going on, and to be part of that drama is to perform devotional service. Which leads into the point that I sort of touched on yesterday morning and sort of left you there hanging. And that is one of the claims I make in my book, and here it goes, sorry about this, the promotion. I know that Rupa Goswami talks about Vaidhi sadhana bhakti and Raga Nuga sadhana bhakti as separate realms. So I'm not trying to argue against Rupa Goswami. Don't worry. But if we take the word vidhi and we take the word raga, what is vidhi? Vidhi means rules. It means injunction. It means that which is done according to Shastra, which gives injunctions typically using the verb in the form of the vidhi leen. And that's the form which is used when you say, you should do this. If you want the desired result, then you should follow this procedure. We're going to be following some vidhi a bit later this morning. Dare I say, we've been a little preoccupied with what's coming up later this morning. But we're also trying to remember what happened in Amsterdam in 1972. I was not personally present. I heard about it later. I was almost present, but then I was sent with some other devotees. Sorry, there's no room. Prabhupada came to install Lord Jagannath, Subhadra Baladev, the deities who are now in Radhadesh, in Amsterdam, in this converted garage. And arrangements made for that installation were, to say the least, minimal. And the reason that the arrangements were minimal was because the devotee in charge of the temple at that time was also to be receiving sannyas, initiation that day. And he was very preoccupied with finding bamboo in Amsterdam. So he couldn't be too much bothered about things like, fire sacrifice arrangement and Abhishek arrangement. Anyway, that's a whole story. Prabhupada, when he saw that the arrangements were not really made for the installation, was quite annoyed. In fact, he was so annoyed, devotees say you could sort of cut the atmosphere with a knife. It was so thick. So, remembering that, I'm trying not to be too preoccupied, but these thoughts come. So vidhi and raga, we usually think of them as separate, but if you really think about it, you really can't separate them. And I want to give, one example, maybe more of this. From the Radharaman temple, as I explained yesterday, Srila Prabhupada wanted that the worship at the Radharaman temple be studied. And so I did this. And in the daily worship of Radharaman, they have one of the things that's most detailed in their vidhi is how to do the midday food offering. It's quite detailed about which preparations should be there and where they should be placed in front of the deity in relation to each other, and there are quite a few details that are given, which I won't go through. But toward the end of the preparation of this offering, it is enjoined, vidhi, that 3 prayers be offered. And these prayers are from Rupa Goswami's Padyavali. And please listen to the translation of these prayers and think about this in relation to raga. So these are prayers being offered to Radharaman at the time of offering we say, boga. O enemy of Mura, Krishna, that love which is invested in the food offered by Vidura to you, in the things offered by Kunti, which is contained in the food offered by the residents of Raja on top of Govardhan Hill, which is in the flat rice offered by Sudama, which is in the breast milk of Yashoda, which is in the 56-item offering of Bharadvaja Muni, which is in the offering of berries by the tribal woman. There's, I believe in Ramayana, that story. Which is in the nectar of the Vraja milkmaid's lips, which is in the food offered by the wives of the Yagyik Brahmins. Kindly imbue my offering to you with such love. That's the first prayer. The next one is, they're similar, but O enemy of Mura, as you found pleasure in the devotion of the Brahmins' wives, in the delicacies offered by Vidura, in the milk of Vraja's cows, in the offering found in the open fist of your friend Sudama, in the breast of Yashoda, in the nectar offered by the girls of Vraja, so may you be pleased with this gift. And the third prayer, may the pleasure you find in the milk offered by Shamala, the sweets offered by Kamala, the laddu offered by Bhadra, and the nectar offered by Somabha, Chandravali, be had by you 100-fold in my offering placed before you, prepared under the order of Radha. So this is vidhi. Within this vidhi are these prayers. did you notice a little, what we might call raga in those prayers? No? No? Yes. So much raga is there. So this is, one can see this in different ways. Either explicitly, here it's rather explicit, or more implicitly. In the arati ceremony, as I said yesterday, we make this little mudra. Oh, he's doing the puja. In the arati ceremony, what do we offer? We offer incense, we offer lamps, we offer quite a few things which are generally not even mentioned in Shastra. But we offer a chamara, it's called chamara seva, and then we offer a fan. So, what are the principal gopis doing when you go to Mayapur, Shri Radha Madhava, Saki Vrinda? So what are the different things that the Sakis are doing? They're offering different items as one would offer in arati. Now the question could be, are they making those offerings in imitation of us? I don't think so. I think it's the other way around. And there's a song from Narottam Das Thakur which expresses his aspiration to become an assistant to those devotees who are doing what? Yeah, they're offering all of these different items which we are offering in our daily worship of the Lord. So the whole idea of this archana, this daily worship, is dramatic performance. I was fortunate when I was doing this study of Radharaman to be in Vrindavan, to be there at a time when some of the one of the families of priests of the Radharaman temple was organizing a special event, an event which they said they only do about once every 20 years. And this was a performance of Ashtakaliya Leela with deities. They were not doing this with the temple Radharaman deity. They were doing with their own household deities. But it was fascinating to watch. Every day they would begin at a different time of day. They would start at 6 in the morning. Well, yeah, 6 in the morning, and they would go until 9 in the morning. And they would perform the pastimes of Krishna at that time with the deities. And how this was done was very interesting. It was all done very much according to Vidhi. It was all very formal. They would come with the deities in procession in a very sort of, how to say, serious is not the word because there was a joyfulness to it. There was a kind of, a kind of serious mood. And they were going, everything was slow motion. They would move with the deities in slow motion. And all the time was the singing, beautiful singing of songs which were describing the particular activity that Krishna is doing at that time of the day. Deity worship, they explain, the priests explain, consists of three components. One of these is Shringara, or elaborate dress, and Srila Prabhupada very much emphasized this. Another is food, and this is especially with regard to Lord Jagannath. Jagannath never stops eating. And the third is what they call Samaj Gayana, or singing, music, entertaining the Lord. Actually, in the afternoon of this performance, and this was a rather exclusive audience. They weren't advertising this around Vrindavan. I just heard about it from the priests, so they allowed me to attend. And one day was the afternoon, something like 3 to 6 in the afternoon, when Krishna returns home after tending the cows. And after they come home, they are bathed, they relax, and they had Krishna and Balaram on the altar, and they were bringing them the afternoon offering. And the afternoon offering was, this incredibly opulent offering. And there was some humor at this point because the musicians playing the part through the voice of Krishna would tell the pujaris, "Bring more of that. Bring more of that sweet." And so they would run back, run out, and they would bring more. And then, "Oh, bring more of the other," and so on. And then they had a little session of entertainment for Krishna and Balaram, in which some of the musicians became like circus actors. So one of them was able to do some fire performance. He lit something on fire and it was spinning around and he was dancing like that. And Krishna and Balaram were there, watching all of this. And then they had a kind of high wire balancing act. And this was done with puppets. They had puppets sort of balanced like this. They were doing this circus for Krishna. And this was all part of the daily worship of Krishna. And what I realized as I was watching all this is that because in the Radharaman temple they don't allow anyone other than the priests, and these are all male priests who are born in the Radharaman family communities. There are 5 families now, 5 now, I think, to go on the altar. So there's no question of, "Oh, Prabhu, could I come and watch you do the puja this morning?" No, you cannot. So what I realized is what I was seeing, what they were showing in this Ashtakaliya Lila performance was the whole process of worship, how they actually do it, behind closed curtain. That was very sweet. Okay, so where am I here? What I want to suggest is that in the worship of Krishna, in the practice of the routine offerings, the daily offerings, what can be done, and what I would suggest is encouraged to be done, is that one remembers, in relation to the particular thing that one is offering or doing, some pastime of the Lord which is, or some image of the Lord which is related to that. And so what I wanted to do, and with apologies if you were expecting a sort of intense, Janmashtami morning, Krishna's going to appear, we have to all get ready for that. Yes, all of that, okay? Actually, we heard that yesterday evening, much better expressed than I can. So what I want to do now is talk about some of these things that one offers in daily puja, and we can think about these in relation to some of Krishna's pastimes. Is that all right?
Yeah.
Some of you know, and some of you don't know, there's a kind of standard worship that's done after the Mangalarti. The pujaris are always anxious that their Singha prayers will be finished quickly so they can close the curtain so they can get to work. They have to do all of the puja within the time before the curtain opens again for a greeting. And the joke among pujaris is that everyone is so busy that as the curtain is opening for the greeting, as the curtain opens on one side, there will be a broom just behind the curtain doing the final cleaning, just last minute. So, but what is going on during those 1.5 or 2 hours is the offering of 16 items, and some of these items are offered rather quickly and some take longer. The main offering that takes so much time is the bathing, snaniyam, and then dressing. But there are other things offered. The first thing that's offered is asana. And this may sound like, yoga, where one learns to do various exercises. But this asana, of course, is a place for Krishna to be seated. So one offers to the Lord, my dear Lord, please accept this asana. And one can, as one's doing this, reflect on or remember that in the Brahma Samhita, in the first several verses, prior to the Chintamani prayers, we call them Chintamani, the Govindam prayers, before all of those prayers, there's this quite elaborate description of a mandala in the spiritual world and what's happening in that mandala. Who is in the center of that mandala? Radha and Krishna are there. And it is very beautifully described as a symmetric, six-sided place which is surrounded with 1,000-petaled form of lotus flower, and so on. So that can be a meditation that one does as one's offering the asana. After asana comes svagatam. What means svagatam? Welcome, yes. Su-agatam becomes svagatam, welcome. Svagatam, su-svagatam. Welcome, very welcome. Krishna, you are welcome. Today, we are welcoming Krishna. He is appearing, and we want to welcome him into our hearts. In the Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 11, Krishna is returning to Dwaraka. Nice description of how he is welcomed in Dwaraka. He is in a kind of procession. He is with a white umbrella. All the people are there, and offering obeisance, throwing flower petals. The ladies are there on the rooftops, and so on and so forth. So that's a real welcome. There are other episodes in the Bhagavatam where someone expects a nice welcome and doesn't get it, and then there's some trouble. There's another welcome scene that occurs to me as a sort of more complicated situation. And this is in Chaitanya Charitamrita, also Chaitanya Bhagavata, a description of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as little Nimai, the troublemaker who goes when the gopis, or the village girls, are offering worship to Katyayani, and little Nimai comes along and says, what are you doing? You should be offering all of this to me. Go away, disturbing our worship. Okay, if you're going to be like that, then I will curse you. You're doing this worship so that, why? So that you can have a nice husband. So I will curse you, that you will become co-wife with so many other wives, and your husband will be old. All right, already, what do you want? So they were not exactly welcoming, but then again, in the end, they are welcoming Nimai. Next is Padyam. One has welcomed the Lord. He sits, and then one offers a bathing of the feet. Why this bathing of the feet? The idea is that someone has traveled some distance, one is tired, and one way to be refreshed is to bathe the feet. In the Bhagavatam, Sudama Brahmana goes to Dwaraka at the urging of his wife, and there he is welcomed, and he's offered a seat. And Krishna very conscientiously bathes his feet. Interesting, because it's Krishna bathing his devotees' feet. A kind of reversal there. This is very raganuga. Then there's something called argyam. Now this argyam is a bit mysterious. What is it exactly? Okay, it's a certain mixture. It's water with certain auspicious things. But what is it really? Well, we find out what it really is, not in the sense of the content, but in its purpose, in also the 10th canto of Bhagavatam, when the Rajasuya Yajna of Yudhishthira Maharaj is being performed. And the question is, who shall be the honored person to receive the argya? And Sahadev votes for Krishna, and everyone agrees, yes, Krishna should be worshipped. Let Krishna receive the argya, that which is offered to an honored guest. Everyone agrees, except Shishupala. And Shishupala lets everybody know that he does not agree. And all of this will lead eventually to Shishupala having a little initiation. It's a slightly violent initiation, but it ends in his entering into the body of Krishna. So that's a very nice conclusion to his protest. And all of this is happening because of some question of who is going to get the worship, who is going to get that argya. So, yes, everyone agrees also at the end that Krishna should get that argya. Anybody who can slice off the head of Shishupala and his life substance, his Atman, his prana, everyone can see enter into the body of Krishna. Maybe we should offer the argya to him, right? Then there's achamana, achamaniya, or that which is sipped, literally. When Parikshit Maharaj meets Shamika Rishi, this is the case where there is not the hoped for welcome, and Maharaj Parikshit is upset. He's tired, he's hungry, he's thirsty. He does something a little out of character, and one could forgive him, but Shamika Rishi's son does not forgive him. He curses him. And before he curses him, what does he do? He touches water. That touching water, sometimes it's with sipping of water, that is achamana. That is a purification, which what the Brahmins do prior to any number of things. The ritual, the vidhi for achamana would make your head spin. Srila Prabhupada once told devotees, if I told you everything you should be doing in the archana, in the worship, you would faint. So he didn't tell them everything. He gave it to us gradually. Then there's Madhuparka, and I was trying to think of an example of Madhuparka, and the only thing I could come up with was Balaram drinking Varani. Yeah. Because Madhu is honey. Madhuparka is a mixture of honey and other ghee and yogurt, milk, and so on. So, yeah, as one offers Madhuparka, one can think of Balaram getting slightly intoxicated from his drinking of the Varani beverage. Then there's what's called Punarachamaniyam, again Achamaniyam, and then there's Snana. And as I said, Snana or bathing, this is, you could say, the major function amongst these 16 items of worship. Bathing, then dressing, and then offering ornaments. So what can we think of? What circumstance of Krishna could we think of? What episode in Krishna's daily life might we think of in relation to this? Mother Yashoda bathing Krishna, for example. Yes, Mother Yashoda. This is a big event. Every morning, Mother Yashoda bathes Krishna. Unlike many small children who cry when they are bathed, Krishna seems to enjoy that bathing. It's very sweet. It's a whole event. It's an elaborate event with perfumes in the water and flowers and on and on and on. And then Mother Yashoda dresses Krishna and in this way pampers him in so many ways. So especially today as we anticipate Krishna appearing, he's appearing how? He's appearing as as a baby, as a little, apparently helpless baby. And by the way, in the Hari Bhakti Vilasa, our book of worship injunctions, the emphasis on Janmashtami is on the opportunity that this day gives for married ladies who are hoping to bear a child. So this is the day that they will worship Krishna in the hopes that Krishna will bless them to have a child. So if there are any ladies in the audience who are in that situation, today's your day to worship Krishna. There's... What else? Can we think of any other bathing pastimes of the Lord? Yes? Airavata bathes Krishna after Indra bathes all of Braja. Yes. Any others? Yes. Yes, they have a stopover on the way to Mathura, and they bathe. And what happens in that situation? Akrura gets a very special darshana of Krishna and Balaram as none other than Lord Vishnu and Ananta Shesha underwater. So as you're bathing Krishna, or as you're bathing your, Shalagram Shila, your Govardhan Shila, your home deity, you might remember these pastimes of Krishna. Yeah. A final one. There's Gandha, there's Pushpa, there's Dupa, there's Deepa, but our time is short. Finally, there's Naivedya. The Chaitanya Charitamrita is full of stories about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his associates feasting. It goes into so much detail about what they eat. One day I was reading all of this and I realized, I was reading one of these descriptions that where Krishnadas Kaviraj is listing the different items that they were having. And I realized Krishnadas Kaviraj has been living most of his life in Braja. He's been away from home. His home was in Bengal. He has been missing all these different preparations that he must have gotten as a child from his mother for decades. He left home in his, early 20s, latest, and he's now in his 90s writing Chaitanya Charitamrita, and he's just remembering all these wonderful things that he ate when he was a child. And certainly Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would have also eaten them. We shouldn't talk about food at this time, should we? We're fasting today, aren't we? Sorry about that. Okay. There's another pastime which Shivaram Maharaj relates in his book Navavraja Mahima about Krishna in a place in Kamyavan called Sonk, where the gopis have been wandering. They've been looking for Krishna and they haven't found him, but they come into this place where they find so many really amazing vegetables growing, and they think, gosh, wouldn't it be great if we could cook a feast? And they don't tell each other if we could cook a feast for Krishna, because they're kind of keeping it all to themselves. But they're thinking like that, and they say this to Radharani, and Srimati Radharani says, well, that's all just wasting your time thinking about this, because here we are in the forest. You should just be satisfied with the fruits, the berries, and so on. But then, a moment later, they look, and boom, there's a whole kitchen waiting for them right there in the forest, fully equipped. All desires are fulfilled in Braj. And so they go to it. They harvest some of these sabjis, they find all the shak, and they're cooking away. And of course, there's aromas coming. Meanwhile, Krishna, back with his cowherd friends, they're near Govardhan Hill, and Krishna makes some excuses to go for a little walk by himself. Madhu Mangala is with him, and they go some distance, come near the Yamuna, and then suddenly Madhu Mangala lifts his head. Oh, what is that I smell? That could only be the gopis cooking for you, Krishna. And Krishna says, but cooking in the forest? I don't get it. And Madhu Mangala says, don't try to understand. It doesn't matter. What matters is they're cooking for you. Let's go. And so Madhu Mangala has very sensitive nose, and he's able to follow the pathway of what he smells. And sure enough, in a short time they find they're the gopis, and they're cooking. And when Krishna and Madhu Mangala appear, the gopis kind of turn around and say, oh, well, look who just happens to show up, just as the offering is about ready for Surya Dev. They're offering to the sun god. And in this way they make some joking, and they're already waiting for their plates in line. So in this way they're hiding their feelings, and Shivaram Raj gives a very nice explanation in an appendix about how it is this indirect speech is expressing love. Okay, I'm going to end there. The whole point, again, is that the worship is a kind of performance, and it's a performance not for some audience, but it's for Krishna. Sometimes we may think, well, gosh, there's practically no one coming to the temple. Well, in one sense, that doesn't matter. If indeed Krishna is there, if Krishna is present, then we are doing the service for Krishna. And indeed, this is direct service. It's direct, and simultaneously it's indirect, because if it weren't for the spiritual master giving us the sanction, the blessings, the instruction, how to do the service, then Krishna would not accept. But because he's giving direction, he's giving blessings, we can serve the Lord directly. And by this process of service, we come to realize, oh, this is actually Krishna. I'm actually present with Krishna. And so it is that we find we are in this thin place when we are on the altar. It's so thin that there's no veil at all. We are directly seeing the Lord. We are having His darshan. And as Srila Prabhupada said so many times, we are seeing Krishna face to face. So that's our aim as we go about the practice, the Vaidhi sadhana bhakti, if we can be a little thoughtful about what it is we are doing, then we come to see that it's not just that we're following so many rules. And even if we're just following so many rules, if we do it with the thought, let me do this to please the Lord, then indeed the Lord will be pleased. Shri Shri Radha Madan Mohan Ki. Do we have? Yes, I think we have time if there's a question. Yes, Atmani.
I don't think I...
Please wait for microphone.
Microphone coming.
Krishna Kshetra Prabhu, I don't think I heard you properly or carefully. You were saying before that there, was it 3 categories of deity worship, or three categories of activities that accompany deity worship? You mentioned food, clothing, and singing. And then the rest after that, most of the lecture was about different aspects of deity worship itself, offering water and asan and so forth.
Yeah.
So could you...
how do those two relate?
Yeah, please.
Okay. The details are sort of elaborations, you could say, of welcoming the Lord and then caring for the Lord, the sort of central element of which you could say is Sringara, is dressing and decorating. And then comes at the end Naivedya. After Naivedya, I didn't mention this, but this actually it's usually counted as the 16th item, is stuti. And stuti means offering prayers, but offering prayers can include all sorts of things. And within that comes music, and within that comes entertainment. And so, each one of the items, of the 16 items, can be further elaborated. You could spend 24 hours a day on the altar elaborating all the different things that one can offer. But I was just mentioning what the Radharaman priests identify as the 3 most essential sorts of offering. That it's the dress, the food offerings, and the music. And the music in the Radharaman temple, you may know, some of you have been there, can be very nice. There are some musicians who will go and sing at different times of the day from the back alcove. They will sit and do very sweet bhajan. And maybe one day that will develop more in our culture. Actually, they have a collection of songs which are fitting to each of the activities of the worship of the day in Brajabhasha. And there's another temple which is not of the Gaudiya tradition, the Radha Vallabha temple, where they have a cycle of songs for the entire year in 3 thick volumes. So for each festival they also have specific songs. And so to have a song written for the specific deity, we need to get our poets writing for Radha Madan Mohan here. for Radha Gokulananda in Bhaktivedanta Manor, for Radha Gopinath in Radhadesh, for Radha Madhava in Mayapur. I think we'll see this eventually, but I think that's one of the projects to be done. Madhavananda.
Thank you very much for such a nice presentation. When you were speaking about Rag and Vaidhi, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he says that there are certain things which are detrimental to the practice of Raganuga, and one of those is the performance of mudras. And it's interesting that the Radharaman temple, which is very Raganuga oriented in some ways, they also perform those mudras there. Can you comment something on that? It seems like a dichotomy, it seems like a conflict.
Well, now it's time when KKD starts speculating. It's tradition. In other words, it may very well be the case that Gopal Bhatta Goswami's first pujari, what was his name? Damodar Goswami, I think, was doing those mudras. Maybe Gopal Bhatta Goswami, because he's written the Hari Bhakti Vilasa, or he compiled somehow or other. He was involved with Hari Bhakti Vilasa. And it could well be that in that early phase of the worship of Radharaman, those things were done. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comes later. What, 100 years later maybe? And so let's imagine that Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comes to the then priests of Radharaman temple and says, what is this you're doing? They're very likely to have said, because that's also very much their mood today, this is how we do the worship. This is our tradition. Radharaman likes this, and this is how we do it. Of course, there's a story of that with regard to Lord Jagannath. The Jagannath priests were going about their worship as they do it. It has all sorts of interesting elements to it, what we might call tantric elements. Actually, we also do Vaishnava Sattvika Tantra, and tradition has it that Ramanujacharya visited there once, saw the worship, and said, no, this has got to change. And the pujaris resisted, and they prayed to Lord Jagannath that, this Vaishnava has come from South India. He's not one of us, and he's got all these newfangled ideas that we should follow Pancharatra and I don't know what else. We don't know what else. Can you please do something about it? About him? So that night, Ramanujacharya takes rest in the place he's staying in Jagannath Puri. Next morning, he wakes up 200 kilometers south in Kurmakshetra. Why? Because Lord Jagannath has agreed to assist his pujaris to maintain the worship as they had been doing it by tradition for so many centuries. Ramanujacharya no doubt had first-class Pancharatrika system for them to follow, but in this case, tradition prevailed, and Lord Jagannath upheld that tradition. So this would be my top of the head guess about what's going on there. Might be something to ask the Radharaman Goswami. So.
A quick comment on that. It's interesting, your comment about Ramanuja, because if you see on the outside of the Jagannath Mandir, on the top of the temple, there's a big Ramanuja tilak.
Oh.
And Chodaganga Dev, who's a king about 900 years ago, was accredited to building the temple. They say he was a disciple of Ramanuja.
Oh.
So this famous story is there.
Yeah.
And everybody tells that, but at the same time, there seems to have been some influence also.
Some influence, yeah. Thank you. Maharaj? 1 second.
Just based on what you said, my comment was that the pujaris were more and more spontaneously worshipping Lord Jagannath, and with all these pancharatriki, that would bring it back to more rules and regulations.
Yeah, that could be. Yes, Prabhu, way in the back.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I would like to understand, you are mentioning that Vidhi and Raga Anuga. So, which has higher priority and what is the potency when we practice? Because on daily basis, when we are doing this Vidhi and when we are doing also this Raga Anuga practice, then sometimes either Raga is coming on top of Vidhi or the Vidhi is coming on top of Raga, and then there is no balance. Sometimes we start confusing ourselves, I mean, at least me.
Therefore you have to read this book.
Thank you, Maharaj.
It's all in this book. No, I was carefully using my words. I'm not speaking about Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti versus Raga Anuga Sadhana Bhakti. But I'm saying that Vidhi and Raga, when you look closely at both of them, I think you'll see they're intertwined. They're interwoven. And even you go more and more to the more spontaneous culture of spiritual life. If you look at the procedure of worship from Dhyan Chandra Goswami, for example, or who was just before Dhyana Chandra? Gopal Guru Goswami. This is Raga Anuga all the way, but it's thoroughly full of vidhi. It's giving injunctions about what to do, what to meditate on, what to chant. It's very detailed. So my general point is to be a little thoughtful about what we're doing as we're doing the vidhi, and this thoughtfulness will help to bring the feeling, which is what it's all about, isn't it? Yes.
And if we are practicing spontaneous activities like chanting more rounds or daily singing kirtans, reading books, which has started as Raga Anuga, or will it become vidhi if we make it as a daily practice?
Whatever it is, I wouldn't worry too much about the designation. At that point, when you're really doing what you want to do because you want to please Krishna, then you don't even worry so much. Somebody may say, oh, you're only doing Vaidhi Bhakti. And you just shrug your shoulders and say, yeah, whatever. Because, you can understand for yourself that this is pleasing the Lord.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Could you elaborate a little on Prabhupada's statement that our worship of the deities of Radha and Krishna are in the mood of Lakshmi Narayan?
Yes.
And how that actually
It's in this book. No.
Just a few comments.
Yeah. No, he's as he says quite explicitly in that, I think it was one letter, he's saying that in the deity worship we are emphasizing vidhi, and therefore we are the activities that we are doing are as if it's Lakshmi Narayan who are present. But of course, if Srila Prabhupada wanted that we worship Lakshmi Narayan, he would have installed Lakshmi Narayan deities, isn't it? Did he ever install a Lakshmi Narayan deity anywhere? Does anyone know of it? I don't think so. He always installed Radha Krishna. So this just proves my point that it is vidhi, but it's completely infused. It's full of raga. This was, Prabhupada's mood. Right then, I think on this happy note, we can end for now. I want to wish you all a wonderful day of Shravanam and Kirtanam and Smaranam about Krishna. We are preparing ourselves, preparing our hearts to welcome Lord Krishna tonight. I hope I can survive that long today. We have a few not so standard event. We have one not so standard event today, perhaps others, I don't know. There's going to be a kind of initiation. Are there any others taking sannyas today? I don't know, maybe, surprise. Some wives wish that their husbands were taking sannyas. Okay. So, we'll end there. Thank you so much for your kind attention and patience. Srila Prabhupada ki, Ananta Goti Vaishnavrinda ki, Shri Janmashtami Maha Mahotsava ki, Gaur Premanande.